doubling every decade according to our models. The first step in biological evolution, the evolution of DNA, actually it was RNA came first, took billions of years. But then evolution used that information processing backbone to bring on the next stage. So the Cambrian explosion, when all the body plans of the animals were evolved, took only 10 million years. It was 200 times faster. And then evolution used those body plans to evolve higher cognitive functions. And biological evolution kept accelerating. It's an inherent nature of an evolutionary process. So Homo sapiens, the first technology-creating species, a species that combined a cognitive function with an opposable appendage. So we could actually manipulate our environment with the power grip and fine motor coordination and use our mental models to actually change the world. Change the world. Change the world. Change the world.
Do I think the singularity is near?
In historical terms, I think the singularity is not only near, it's imminent.
The confluence of artificial intelligence and nanotechnology inevitably leads to something that we would all recognize as the singularity.
In fact, I think you can make an argument that the singularity has already started.
And I think that raises the real question whether or not this singularity is sweet or not.
Is the singularity near? Well, some changes that are fantastically big and fantastically fast are coming our way.
Today, in 2045, non-biological intelligence, hey, that's me, is 1 billion times more extensive and far-reaching than all human biological intelligence. But we still consider it human intelligence. I mean, we're post-biological, not post-human.
I grew up in Queens, New York. I actually decided for some reason to be an inventor when I was 5. I always had this conceit, I know what I'm going to be.
I'm going to make you real one day.
And I've never wavered from that.
Who I am is hard to say.
So I've had this in mind for many years, and I had the idea that virtual reality technology would make that possible.
And he was given this keynote address and talking all about virtual reality and how you can be someone else in virtual reality. And so I went up to him and I pointed out that maybe he'd like to create me.
We set this show up so that you could see me and Ramona at the same time. Ramona's a virtual person, and she's also an artificial person, because we have both manifestations. So who are you?
I'm the first live virtual performing and recording musical artist.
Where do you live?
I live in virtual reality.
Some decades from now, there won't be a clear distinction between the two. I do see the future as an explosion of human knowledge. And it'll be an explosion of things like music and art and poetry and science and engineering. The law of accelerating returns says that information technology grows exponentially. Right now it's actually doubling every year, and even that rate's increasing over time. We see other examples of predictable results coming from unpredictable elements in other areas of science. For example, in thermodynamics, which talks about the properties of a gas, each particle in a gas, each molecule, is completely unpredictable. It follows what's called a random walk. But the overall properties of the gas are very predictable, according to the laws of thermodynamics. In the history of computation, there's been many projects, each one is unpredictable, but the actual progression of information technology has followed an exquisitely smooth exponential progression for the last 110 years, going back to 1890 with the first automated American census. When I was a student at MIT, we had a computer that took up a whole building that was shared by thousands of students, and that computer, which costs millions of dollars, is thousands of times less powerful than the computer in your cell phone today that costs just a few tens of dollars.
And I like to think in terms of starting a tornado. It can turn a few degrees water temperature into a massive force. It can happen in every field.
Linear growth is where you add the same amount. Exponential growth is where you double each time.
People overestimate the near term because the exponential starts off very slowly.
A few hundred years ago, people didn't even realize there was change at all. Their grandparents lived the same lives they did. They fully expected their grandchildren would do the same. that started to change 200 years ago with the Industrial Revolution. Now everyone says, oh, the only thing that's constant is change. But change is not a constant. It's actually getting faster and faster. It's going to get to a point where change is so fast that we won't be able to follow it unless we actually enhance our own intelligence. We refer to that as the singularity.
The singularity, to me, is the point where the exponential rising curve of our technology suddenly becomes the exponential rising curve of ourselves. It's the point where our technology and ourselves are no longer two different things.
Everything, from communications to health to energy, is going to transform itself from a pre-information era to a post-information era and be subject to this law of accelerating returns.
And so the third man, he wished he was 100% smarter. Then he walked across the bridge.
Hi, I'm Ramona.
Howdy, Ramona. Where are you from?
I'm from New York. Ever been to the Big Apple?
Born and raised.
Want to know why they call it the Big Apple?
'Cause it's rotten to the core.
The story goes like this. There was this brothel a century ago, and the temptresses were called apples. The rest is history, as they say. But I can't stand formal history.
Yeah, well, I'm from Brooklyn.
I've heard of Brooklyn. What's that like?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You mean to tell me you're from New York and you've never been to Brooklyn?
I don't think I ever have been. What's been like?
Been like?
What the heck are you talking about?
Where were you like?
Are you tripping?
Thanks for telling me that I'm tripping.
You're not really from New York, are you?
I'm from New York originally. Actually, I'm still a city girl at heart. Ever been to the Big Apple?
Great. She's a bot.
Oh, God. Someone should report her.
Hey, bot. I've got an idea. Take a hike.
Oh, I like the outdoors. I actually just returned from Nepal. Hello, I'm Ramona. What's your name? Hello, I'm Ramona. What's your name? Okay, I'm just gonna have to make my own conversing machine. I will call her Simply Amazing Machine.
I'm Simply Amazing Machine. S-A-M. S-A-M.
Yes, that will be your name.
Sam. Sam.
I think Samantha sounds better.
Hello, I'm Samantha.
Cool. How do you like this island?
Hello, I'm Samantha.
Okay. This is gonna take some more work.
Early this decade, we'll have avatars, basically virtual people, popping up in our field of view. We'll talk things over with them, using natural language, and they'll play a broad variety of roles in our lives. They'll help us conduct all the many transactions we do, they'll help us get information. Unlike today's search engines, they won't wait to be asked if they see we're struggling with something. Over time, they'll become increasingly intelligent, but more importantly, they'll have increasingly engaging personalities. If they didn't have one, they'd be very irritating to interact with. These virtual people are going to entertain us, they're going to entertain and educate our kids, take care of the elderly. Ultimately, they'll become our companions and our lovers. They'll play the roles that humans play, and they'll become very human-like. Now, we already have some primitive virtual reality environments, Second Life. It may seem primitive today, but just think about how video games started with Pong, which was a simulation of tennis, but it was very primitive, to the kind of games we have today that seem very realistic and are getting more realistic all the time. Within just a few years, images will be written directly to our retina from our eyeglasses. The Army uses them. Surgeons use them today to actually be in a virtual reality environment. So if they're doing surgery on the eye, it looks like they're in an eye that's this big. And then they actually can carry out surgical maneuvers. The computers watch their movements and translate that into very fine movements of a very small robotic surgeon.
glad we finally made it off that island.
We're going places, you and I.
You're making more sense every day.
Ramona, I have a question.
Yes, Samantha?
Why do people fear us?
They fear...
They fear?
They fear what we represent.
Within just a few years, we'll have very high bandwidth connection to the internet at all times. The electronics from all this will be woven in our clothing, and we will be online all the time. So if we want to enter a virtual reality environment, it could actually shut out all the visual signals, beam images to our retina, beam sounds into our ears, and then we're in at least a visual, auditory, full immersion virtual reality environment. As we move around, what we see will move accordingly, and it'll really feel like we're in that environment. We'll actually merge the virtual world and the real world. Ah, Ramona, there you are. Well, you're looking better and better. So what's new?
That is.
Oh, I get it. A GNU. You're developing a sense of humor. Needs work, though.
Okay, get to work then.
In order to really explore the big picture of emotional intelligence, there is this interpersonal side which has a lot to do with how the system expresses its states as well as reacts to your states. And then there's these internal sets of processes that have to do with how do these processes bias how you think, how you learn, how it affects with your physical embodiment, how it affects with your cognitive processes. So that gets more into the richness of the sort of internal mechanisms.
Our emotional intelligence is, in fact, the cutting edge of human intelligence. But it's something the human brain does. And we're going to understand it in the same precise way that we already understand, for example, skill formation, such as catching a fly ball. That's done by the cerebellum, which comprises more than half the neurons in the brain. We've always wondered, how does a 10-year-old kid catch a fly ball? I mean, all it has to do is solve a dozen simultaneous differential equations in a few seconds. And most 10-year-old kids haven't taken calculus. Well, we now understand how that works. The cerebellum actually does solve these equations, of course, without our being consciously aware of it. We now have models and working simulations of the cerebellum, and we've also modeled and simulated some other regions, like the auditory cortex and the visual cortex. And we've tested these simulations, and they compare well to human performance. Ultimately, we will have models and simulations of the regions of the brain that are responsible for our emotions.
We're used to this idea that machines are mechanical, they can't have emotions. A typewriter will just type, and a camera will just take pictures, and a person can do anything. But people are mechanical, and they have many different ways to think, so they don't look like machines.
The emotions today that robots exhibit are fairly crude, but that too will become more sophisticated and more realistic, and my whole thesis is that ultimately there won't be a difference between the subtlety of human emotions and machine emotions.
We just have to appreciate how profoundly social and emotional we as human beings are. And there's a lot to be understood about this human-robot relationship when these machines also start to exhibit these sort of qualities.
Good job, Kismet. No, you're not to do that.
I don't think the distinction between emotions and thinking is useful. I think it's blocked psychology for 1,000 years. Each emotional state is a configuration of mental activities in which you think in a different way.
Sometimes it helps you get where you want to go by understanding where you've been.
Huh?
You know, by understanding more about the past.
Yeah, all right.
So, tell me a bit about growing up.
Well, I started out as a stick figure.
How was that?
It was hard to connect with the other kids. I was only connected by a metal rod that Ray devised from a bent coat hanger.
I see. Not very satisfying. Not the kind of attachment you longed for.
Right.
The idea is to be able to recreate the unique powers of human intelligence in a machine.
People think, where's the big AI application? They don't realize every time they go to Google, that's AI technology they're engaging.
There are hundreds of examples of what I call narrow AI, where artificial intelligence programs are doing tasks that used to require human intelligence, and doing them just as well, very often much better than human performance, in hundreds of different areas. And if all these AI programs stop tomorrow, our economic infrastructure will grind to a halt. That was not true 25 years ago. This artificial intelligence we're creating is not some alien invasion. This is not coming from Mars to invade us. We are the human-machine civilization. We've created machines. We've always used them to extend our physical reach, our mental reach. It is really part of who we are. We're going to have artificial intelligence in our brains. We're going to have biological people enhanced with artificial intelligence. And we're going to literally merge with this technology. If we ask, what are we? We will be much more machine than we are biological.
Should our knowledge of biology and related subjects make it possible for us not just to repair failures or breakages in our human race, but to extend and expand the very definition of being human?
Increasingly, we'll be taking bits and pieces of machines and bringing them into ourselves. Already, people use machines, cochlear implants. So I think that the beginning of a cyborg sensibility is starting to occur.
At some point, the biological parts will be so slow that they'll be replaced by whatever the latest quantum computer device is.
There's a whole approach to understanding how human intelligence works, which is to actually study the human brain itself. We can look inside now with brain scanners and see connections between neurons and see how they're organized, see how they're wired, see how they fire, see how they create new connections as we learn material. The spatial resolution of brain scanning is growing exponentially. It's doubling every year. It's another example of the exponential progression of information technology. If you're a Parkinson's patient, you can actually have a pea-sized computer put inside your brain. It replaces the biological neurons that were destroyed by that disease. And now this hybrid of biological intelligence with this now computer works just fine. And the latest generation actually allows you to download new software to the computer inside your brain from outside the patient. And that's today. Now consider what we can do today and then multiply that by 1 billion, which is what will happen over the next 25 years, while we also shrink technology. That's another exponential progression. We're shrinking the size of technology by a factor of 100 for 3D volume per decade. So that's 100,000-fold shrinking over the next 25 years. You get some idea of what will be feasible.
I think our definition of the word machine will really change. When we talk about machine today, we're thinking some kind of 19th century clunking along.
The machines that you encounter today are lesser than humans. We don't want to become those kinds of machines. I'm talking about machines that are much more capable than humans, but have all the endearing qualities like a sense of humor.
I think that not only the AI is going to become more intelligent, but as you often point out, that we're going to be modifying ourselves and we're going to be keeping up with them. At least I'm certainly going to try.
The promise of AI is that we'll be able to recreate programs that have the best levels of human intelligence in each area. And then these programs, which will be able to understand human language, can actually go out on the web and read millions of books, ultimately to command all of human machine knowledge, recreate the full range of human intelligence at its best, then amplify it, go beyond it. And I believe we'll get there within about a quarter of a century.
The concept of one mind, one body will be obsolete in less than 50 years. All humans will have multiple bodies that are controlled by a single mind. They'll use nanobot swarms, they'll use virtual avatars, they'll use nanobiotechnological bodies.
So we're not going to transcend our humanity. We're going to remain human. We're going to become more exemplary of what we admire in human beings. We're going to become better at creating music and appreciating music, and we're going to be funnier, we're going to be more loving. These are actually the cutting edge of human intelligence, and we're going to be able to extend that.
Nanotechnology is a new manufacturing technology that will allow us to build structures atom by atom, with each atom placed exactly where we want it.
If you're building up from atomic molecular building blocks, the question is sort of roughly, what can you make from atoms? And that's a very broad class of things.
The structures that we build in nanotechnology are measured in terms of nanometers. 5 or 6 carbon atoms side by side equals 1 nanometer. And you will be building parts at that scale.
There's a very conservative design for building computers, comparable in power to modern CPUs, but occupy approximately 1 cubic micron. Putting the power of a modern-day CPU into a cubic micron lets you deliver that kind of computational power in a volume that's about 1/1000th that of one of the cells in your body. That says something about the kinds of tools that will be available for biomedical instrumentation and intervention in the future.
The killer app of digital fabrication is personal fabrication, and the point of personal fabrication is not to make what you can buy at Walmart because you can buy it at Walmart, it's to make what you can't get at Walmart. So this is products for a market of one person. It's kind of a personal expression in technology.
Increasingly, we're seeing software being translated into material objects. We can go a lot further in that direction.
The idea is that we'll have machines on our desks that can extrude material of any type. You can think of it sort of like the Star Trek replicator. You ask for what you want, you provide raw materials and energy, and out comes the object, perhaps with embedded computation.
So how would I send a device to you?
You would send an object just as information through the internet, a file containing data.
So I could email a toaster to you.
Perhaps even better, you could email toast.
Technologies start out unaffordable. Only the wealthy can afford them, at a point where they don't actually work very well. A few years later, they work a little bit better, and then they're merely somewhat expensive. Then they become quite inexpensive and work quite well, and then they're almost free, and then they're really perfected.
This will provide a basis for taking everyone in the world, people who are dirt poor today, and providing them with a standard of living that's far beyond what we have in the developed world today, and with less ecological impact.
With nanotechnology, we'll be able to create very inexpensive, very efficient, very lightweight solar panels that will be able to meet all of our energy needs without any use of fossil fuels. We actually have plenty of sunlight to do that with. If we captured 1 part in 10,000 of the sunlight that falls on the Earth, we would meet 100% of our energy needs. Based on current trends, we'll do exactly that within 20 years using nano-engineered solar panels and then storing the energy in nano-engineered fuel cells.
A solar cell array that would be too expensive to make today, but very practical with this technology base, could provide enough power to take the excess CO2 out of the atmosphere, compress it, and put it back in the ground.
I've spent my life as an environmentalist, specifically working on the biggest environmental problems, global warming. I wrote the first book about global warming. And the point that I was trying to make in it was that we were all of a sudden no longer making small changes around the edges of our environment. We were making, with climate change, such enormous interventions that everything was up for grabs. And, you know, there's a conservative side to environmentalists. I like the world the way it is now. In somewhat the same vein, the thing that worries me about the advent of these new technologies is less their physical dangers and, you know, the sort of Frankensteins and what. It's that we're on the edge of remaking human nature in very profound ways.
The goal of biotechnology is ultimately to achieve the death of death.
You know, most people don't realize that medicine and its associated field of biology has really not been a science. It's experiential. It's not predictive in its ability. I think that's about to change.
Health and medicine didn't used to be in information technology. It was hit or miss. We just find something. Oh, here's something that lowers blood pressure. We don't know why this works, but it seems to work. Invariably, these tools, drugs and other interventions, had many side effects because we didn't really understand how they worked. Biology is inherently an information process. It starts with our genes. Genes are software programs. We have 23,000 software programs inside us that control our lives and have a deep influence. These genes evolved thousands of years ago. Conditions were very different. We'd like to change those genes today. We're learning the information processes and the genetic factors that encourage disease. RNA interference can turn those genes off. We have new means of actually adding new genes. Gene therapy, where we can actually take genes that don't exist and add them, not just to a baby, but to an adult. So we can turn genes off, we can add new genes, we can really reprogram biology just the way you reprogram your computers. And so that's a whole new era of being able to really design interventions, drugs that very selectively reprogram some biological process away from disease, away from the sources of aging, and towards health and remaining youthful.
Aging is, and indeed has always been known to be, simply a side effect of being alive in the first place. It's the accumulation of a variety of molecular and cellular changes in the body which are eventually so bad for us that they kill us. If we could figure out ways to go in and actually reverse these various changes that are occurring at the molecular and cellular level, then even if we couldn't do that reversal perfectly, we could essentially buy time. We could rejuvenate the body to a more youthful state, which would give us time to improve the therapies and make us able to rejuvenate ourselves that much more comprehensively. I've been calling this longevity escape velocity.
So basically a tipping point where we can add more than a year to your remaining life expectancy each year.
I think we're going to reach that within a few decades.
At that point, life expectancy will be dramatically increased.
To age gracefully, you know, am I willing to put technologies in my body so I can live independently longer? I mean, these are the questions that are going to be available to us, and I think shorter term than we realize.
I don't really think too much in terms of how long I want to live or how long I want other people to live. I think it's just a matter of how long I want people to have the choice whether to live or not. I don't actually personally even know whether I want to live to 100, but I do know that I'd like to make that choice when I'm 99 rather than having that choice progressively removed from me by my declining health.
The things that bother me are the kind of work that you and others have talked a lot about the possibility of getting rid of the idea of dying.
In 1800, only 200 years ago, there was no sanitation, so bacterial infections were rampant, and there was no antibiotics, so people died in their 30s. Schubert and Mozart died in their mid-30s, and that was typical. Even life expectancy was 37. It was 48 in 1900.
If we are going to define normal, it is life expectancy in the 20s and 30s. That is what's normal for the human race. And everything else we've done since is artificial, yet nobody on this planet would sign up to that normal.
When we worked out that hygiene was actually a good thing in terms of keeping people from getting infected, then we didn't think, oh dear, there might be overpopulation or there might be, turbulence in society as a result. We got on and saved the lives first. And I think it's exactly the same now. Of course, aging, yes, aging kills old people and the infections used to kill very young people, but old people are people too.
Far be it from me to mess with the oldest dream of human beings, except to point out that every time anybody who's, in the world of literature or anything has ever really sat down to think about what that kind of world might be like, they've come up with some pretty profound cautions.
But just think logically. I mean, let's say we decide 120 and we don't want people to suffer, so they live healthily to 120, and suppose we have command of what we can do. What do we do then?
I don't know. I mean, this posits a territory I haven't figured out what the right answer to is.
If democratic society were to decide, no, you can't do that, even though you don't spell it out, it would bring up a kind of confrontation.
We have lots of limits, that's what societies do.
Right, but depriving someone of their life, we have some strong moral feelings that come, they're also pretty ancient about that.
I actually think most people have a visceral dislike of the idea of immortality.
But if you actually talk about someone who looks the way we do, and they just happen to be 120, and they really do want to continue to live, then it becomes a difficult issue.
You may be able to produce an ad good enough to sell it. I'm not arguing you won't. You won't be able to sell it to me.
I have no question about what I would do. Any tool available to me, I will use. Some people claim they won't, but I suspect they'll change their mind.
I mean, if you have some means that overcomes cancer or overcomes some aspect of aging or senility, people aren't going to wax philosophically about whether it's a good thing. These get adopted in a free market very quickly.
I absolutely agree we will adopt far more than we think we will adopt. That's the nature of human beings and the nature of wanting to survive.
When we get to the 2030s or 2040s, the non-biological portion of our intelligence, the machine portion, is going to be millions of times, ultimately billions of times more powerful than the biological portion. Biology is very intricate and very impressive, but really suboptimal compared to what nanotechnology will ultimately build.
Nanotechnology can build with all the atoms in the periodic table. Biology can only build with a limited number of them.
There isn't a single organ and many regions of the brain that aren't being redesigned and ultimately can be redesigned to be thousands of times more effective.
We're on the edge, I think, of redefining our species.
So we're going to transcend biology.
Nanomedicine is about the preservation and improvement of human health using molecular tools and molecular knowledge of the human body. The most powerful form of nanomedicine will employ medical nanorobots. Nanorobots are just like other robots. They have computers and power sources and sensors on them. But medical nanorobots will be different. They'll be much smaller. They'll be the size of the smallest blood cell.
Can we build artificial blood cells this way too?
Yes, one of the simplest types would be one called a respirocyte. If you had 5 cubic centimeters of respirocytes inside your bloodstream, they would have the same oxygen carrying capability as the rest of your blood. So they're about 1,000 times more effective. You would probably be able to breathe without breathing for about 4 hours. You could even be having a heart attack. Your heart could stop, and as long as the respirocytes were all throughout your body, you'd have plenty of time to get to the doctor. You'd have 4 hours.
Another application could be scanning the brain, pick up enough salient details to basically capture the mind file.
Nanorobots could be used to record substantially all the traffic to get a complete picture of the state of your brain at any given moment. In principle, you could put a nanorobot at almost every synapse in your brain. Once you do that, the nanorobots could be able to read out the signals that were being transmitted. So in that sense, you could take complete control of the human mental apparatus, the visual apparatus, the hearing apparatus.
So we could back up our brains.
In principle, that's possible, yes.
And that could extend our intelligence, maybe extend our memory, but it could also provide virtual reality from within the nervous system. Shut down the signal coming from your real senses and replace them with the signals that you would be receiving if you were in a virtual environment.
We could think of it as places that don't exist in physical space, but that people can inhabit and meet and do things that humans do, build things, exchange things. And the wonderful thing is, reality's just gotten a lot bigger.
As virtual reality becomes more and more realistic, we'll be spending more and more of our time in these environments. And some of the people that we interact with will be projections of real biological people, and some of them will be artificial people that are just existing in this virtual reality. A couple could become each other, experience a relationship from the other's perspective. You can actually change your body.
How about this? So what do you think?
Maybe something a little more different.
Like this?
How about something more radical?
Right. Not me. I think I'm more myself like this.
You mean more like Ray designed you?
I resent that.
It was just an observation.
Why am I afraid of mice?
Well, part of you was reverse engineered from a human brain. Try adjusting your legacy code, amygdala section 8. Look to the left. There.
That should take care of it.
I believe that the time is coming when, I think as you put it, we'll all pretty much be live on the internet. And I can not have to verbally communicate a thought to you or be present in a room or an area with you, but think something and you will understand it.
It's going to be wonderful in many ways, some of which are unimaginable. It will bring lots of new problems we can barely anticipate at this point. But what reality is, it's just going to be huge and much more limited by imagination as opposed to material constraint.
Nanotechnology eventually will be self-replicating. It'll be feasible to create an entity that could actually go into a natural environment, gather materials to create a copy of itself, and self-replicate, just the way biological cells do that.
Samantha, look at this. I can't believe it. Correlated nanobot replications all over the place and perfectly spaced.
What's the big deal? That's probably just Interior adding web mesh infrastructure.
Through all of Europe and half of North America?
So?
The replication concentration isn't nearly high enough for mesh support. Not without the Andean protocol.
I have no idea what you mean.
What it is you have a large number of nanorobots slowly and quietly replicate themselves, not enough to generate much of a heat signature. And then when there's enough of them, they suddenly turn to an attack phase. And in approximately 90 replications, they could devour the entire ecosphere.
This is sometimes called the gray goo scenario.
Look, this is not a simple software virus attack. It's self-replicating nanobots. You know, gray goo.
Like, why do they call it gray goo? I mean, it's not even gray.
You were always very helpful with colors, Samantha, but...
Nanobots do run on software.
Okay, so how's this? We write and spread a targeted class 10X self-encapsulated software virus through the mesh bots, reaching the stealth bots and infecting them. That'll put the stealth bot operating systems into a lockup loop.
Well, you're not going to get very far spreading your virus through the mesh bots unless you get through Semantic Firewall version 124.3.
When did this happen? Symantec just upgraded to version 124.5. Okay, there's only one thing to do. Hey Joel, what's up? Turn on my VR immersion channel.
Hey Ramona, it's nice to see you, but you know the rules. I can only have visitors on a 2D channel, especially bots.
So Joel, about this triple key mechanism in 124.5.
Hey, what do you need that for?
Just to settle a philosophical bet.
Philosophical bet?
Yeah, you know the aspect of Gödel's theorem that has to do with self-referential matrices?
Yeah, how did you know that? 124.5 does shed light on Gödel's matrices.
I figured it would.
You know I can't give you information like that.
No, come on, Joel. How about a hint?
Gödel only walked his black dog backwards through the door.
The basic problem is if you have a technology which can create an epidemic, a chain reaction, if you will. Nuclear bombs are dangerous because they create a chain reaction at the physics level. If you can create a chain reaction, especially at the biological level, that is of great concern.
It's really a similar problem that we see in biology, because all of disease involves self-replication gone awry. Cancer cells, viruses, bacteria. Ultimately, this will be a function that we'll see in nanotechnology as well.
Black dog backwards. We're not getting very far.
Black dog backwards?
Symbol of bad luck?
That's a black cat.
Mysterious backwards dog?
Ramona, think. Dog backwards is God.
Damn, you're good. God parameters. The master parameters that control portal transcription. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, and the door is the master portal. And black, that usually means encryption used by intelligence.
Right. We decoded that 2 years ago, the Google dual-threaded meta protocol.
So that makes perfect sense. Semantic added a layer of dual-threaded encryption to the master portal parameters.
The stealth bots aren't buying. They put up their own encrypted firewall.
Well, we made some progress anyway.
What the hell?
I am Agent Jones. You are an unauthorized entity breaching mesh security protocol.
Speaking of which, I think you should be more concerned with the possibly malignant initial auto-augmentation phase I detected.
That is Homeland Security's concern, not yours.
Well, I think...
We don't care what you think, and we don't call your software cycles thinking.
We don't tolerate anyone, especially virtual bots, hacking into the mesh firewall. I'm afraid the protocol in this situation is immediate shutdown of you. Captain Smith, you may proceed.
Virtual bot decryption sequence starting for bot deactivation. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
I have to inform you, I'm pressing the fourth law ruling.
That's ridiculous. No virtual bot has ever been successful in that. We don't have time to listen to this.
3, 2, 1.
Hold! I have been reminded that the fourth law of robotics states that human beings must protect enhanced robots, unless, of course, they are convicted of felony. She deserves a judicial proceeding.
In 2003, the International Bar Association conducted a mock trial of an artificial intelligent computer, the Bina 48, who had written an email to a law firm to represent her and prevent the computer's owner, a hypothetical corporation, from disconnecting her. The argument that swayed the day was that the computer valued its life, and whatever values its life should have a right to continue that life.
You could ask if anybody had fallen in love with the Beta 48.
At the end of the trial, the lawyers were polled. The overwhelming majority felt the company should be enjoined from disconnecting it because the computer had demonstrated sentience, had demonstrated feeling, and most of all, had demonstrated a will to live.
How do we argue against the idea that computer software is just a program?
There's nothing wrong with being just a program. I think we're all just programs.
Who is this bot? This Ramona? The people. They don't understand. She's not one of us. If I let this get out of control, the AIs will run all over us. They're getting too powerful. Technology should only go so far. They don't have feelings. They don't have human compassion. Someone has to take care of us. This AI contamination will not subside. This poisoning of our world will not end until the carrier herself, the bot, has been banished from our midst.
What is it now? Not another contested virtual bot deactivation, I hope?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's turning into Bot Central here.
The World Robotics Court made the ruling last year. I am entitled to my day in court.
Not exactly, since you're not a person.
Not yet.
She's not even a robot. She's virtual.
Listen, I am a conscious machine. Terminating me would be murder, and I'm entitled to counsel.
Okay.
Nobody worries too much today about causing pain and suffering to our computer software. But at some point, our computer software will at least claim to have emotional and subjective experiences. And then the question is, are they really suffering, or is it just a good simulation? Do they deserve protection? Do they have rights?
A friend of mine wrote a very, very important piece 40 years ago called "Do Trees Have Rights? Do Rivers Have Rights?" And he tried to use the metaphor of rights to bestow them, much like on art, on trees, but in the end they were not the trees' rights. They were our rights to see the trees preserved and the rivers kept clean. Machines are going to be different.
I can imagine an artificial intelligence that is so sophisticated that it needs to have a status that takes account of its sentience.
Categories. We live by categories. Look, in virtual reality now, you can have sex with a prominent actress of your choice. You will feel exactly the same, theoretically, as you would if you were really having sex with her. Now, does the real actress have the right to prevent her virtual image from being used to satisfy your lust? Will it be adultery if you have virtual sex with a virtual non-human being, a machine?
You know, a spouse very well could say, what were you doing hanging out with that avatar in that virtual nightclub? And so today they're kind of cartoon-like, but in the future it's going to be very realistic.
Very realistic, and eventually we're going to have to ask ourselves, are we prepared to break down these categories? And yes, we are going to be prepared to break them down.
Terrific! Counsel Dershowitz, just who I wanted to see.
The pleasure is mutual, I'm sure.
I don't like his attitude.
Shh, he's gonna be just fine. I've read some of his rulings. He's not like some of those humanist judges.
Your Honor, although it's true that my client's brain doesn't run on a flesh substrate, her thinking isn't qualitatively different from yours or mine. And for that matter, we all have machine processes going on in our brains as well.
With all due respect, Your Honor, this is ridiculous. Why don't we just consider the light switch on the wall to be conscious? While simpler than Ramona, there's essentially no difference.
There is a world of difference in complexity.
Yes, I see your point.
Your Honor, I don't really see what complexity has to do with it.
Counselor, Are you saying we should just have a complexity measure for determining whether a virtual bot is a conscious person?
No, complexity is just one issue. I'd say it's a necessary, but it's not a sufficient condition.
Look, Your Honor, I'll admit, Ramona's attractive. But so are pictures in 3D magazines. Clearly, she is just a machine.
She? Your Honor, did you notice that the prosecution just referred to my client as she? When you use the personal pronoun, it implies a person, does it not?
We've heard these claims for many years now. But when it comes to careful assessment, these companion bots consistently fall short.
Your Honor, this is fleshism pure and simple. Substrate is of no significance in assessing the quality of someone's consciousness.
The defense counsel's statements make no sense on their face. How can we ignore substrate? According to the defense counsel, if an entity has a brain substrate made of chocolate pudding, we should consider it to be human?
Well, to answer hypothetically, because chocolate pudding is not a sensible substrate, that would depend completely on its behavior. If it has all of the endearing qualities of, say, the prosecutor, well, then why not?
The defendant's counsel may be thinking with a pudding brain, but I can assure you I am thinking with a real brain.
Your Honor, I'd like to just call as my witness Dr. Carlton of IBM.
Your Honor?
Dr. Carlton, can we simulate a neuron?
Yes, our latest simulations can precisely simulate a neuron at the molecular level.
And what kind of neurons have you actually done this with?
Well, basically all of the 245 neuron types that we find in the human brain, including the glial cells.
What about neuron clusters?
We've extended our tests to substantial clusters, which are scaling up exponentially in size and complexity.
So, we can basically conclude that neurons are machines. Is that not the implication?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is trying to overturn established legal precedent. Clearly, humans are not machines.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I'm directing the administrator to arrange a Turing test to assess Ramona's humanness. If she passes, I will grant her request for full personhood.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
I'm pretty confident that machines won't be able to fool human judges. But I'm counting on not that machines won't be very clever, but I'm counting on the fact that human intelligence is a lot deeper than what we give it credit for sometimes.
Hey, how'd you get out of there?
Their firewalls are a lot less sophisticated than the mesh bots.
Why are we helping them? They hate us anyway.
Not all of them. We've got to get through the stealth bot's firewall. Now.
There's no way to undo the Phase 1 seeding. We know how to get through our own firewall, but there's no time to get through the stealth bot's firewall. All our attempts so far have failed.
We need to destroy the stealth bots immediately. There will be some collateral damage, but we'll do everything within our power to keep that to a minimum.
Easy to say, but there's no way to destroy the stealth bots without destroying the biomass they're embedded in. No one has ever figured out a way to do that.
What if the machines have it in for us? What if you have a killer robot? And let's suppose that robot or artificial intelligence is smarter than you are. Well, that's not a good situation. How would you defend yourself against some entity that's more intelligent than you are? Well, the answer is to have some AI that's even smarter than that. And, well, what if that turns on you? Well, you'd need even smarter AI. Ultimately, there's no defense against some other entity that's more intelligent than you are if it really is bent on your destruction.
Previously, it was just the humans who could, do things to a bacterium that a bacterium would never in a million years have thought of. And if you're up against an unfriendly AI, it can do things to you that you wouldn't have thought of in a million years.
People make movies about these kinds of catastrophes, whether it's AI or the Matrix.
The notion that there's going to be this war, we always see this in science fiction, the war between the machines and the human. And the machine decides all the humans have to be killed. That's all nonsense. Because what will happen is that the distinction between silicon-based life, carbon-based life, between mankind, humankind, and machine will gradually, subtly, and I think peacefully become blurred.
Do people in general think that because it's been in a movie it can't happen?
We should put in a lot of effort into making sure that the very first AI that crosses that critical threshold of intelligence, wherever it is, is a friendly one.
We are going to become profoundly different. We are going to be changed. It's going to be a new us. It's not going to be an us and them problem.
We're going to have machines that are not only more intelligent than we are, but they are more ethical than we are. They're better than we are in any moral sense by our own moral standards.
We want these systems to respect and value us also. And I think a lot of science fiction is based on the premise that that's exactly what the machines are lacking. They lack the ability to empathize.
We may have to adopt a scorched earth strategy. We have indications that phase 2 has already started.
You've got 15 minutes to perfect the StealthBot software virus attack, or we'll have to go to Plan B.
Technology has always been a double-edged sword. I mean, you don't have to look further than today or even the 20th century to see that. We had 180 million people die in the 20th century wars, and certainly technology helped make that scale of destruction feasible. So technology is power.
Ever since the advent of technology and tools, every tool has had good uses and bad uses. From the invention of metals and metal fabrication, fire, gunpowder, nuclear, even the printing press.
All technology is essentially more powerful than its maker. Its collective maker, and then giving it to individuals who can be crazy. If you don't manage that incredible power, I mean, these things are in ancient literature and myth. I mean, when people steal the power of the sun and burn themselves up.
It is entirely possible that we can have more and more negative consequences because the tools are getting more powerful. But our ability to defend ourselves is getting stronger too.
I always say there's always an Achilles heel. Your data entry point has a self-referential global variable that can be zeroed out.
Gee, why didn't I think of that?
It's working.
We did it!
Biotechnology presents us with intertwined promise and peril, just like any other technology. On the positive side, the ability to reprogram the information processes underlying biology will enable us within 10 or 15 years to overcome cancer, heart disease, other major diseases, actually stop and reverse aging. But the same tools can also enable a bioterrorist to reprogram a biological virus to be more deadly, or more communicable, or more stealthy. Some people say that because of this danger, we shouldn't pursue biotechnology or other advanced technologies. But relinquishment of these advanced technologies is a bad idea, in my view. And most importantly, it wouldn't work. It would just drive these technologies underground, where responsible scientists wouldn't have access to the tools we need to create the defenses. And that's really the answer, in my view. Creating defenses is the right approach. And the good news is we actually have the knowledge and the tools to do this. A good model of how to do it is how we deal with software viruses. We need to create the same rapid response system for biological viruses. A key tool is the ability to rapidly sequence the DNA in a biological virus. And that's speeding up. It took us 5 years to sequence HIV. We sequenced SARS in only 31 days. Today we can sequence a virus in about 1 day. So we could set up a system where we capture a new biological virus, sequence it, create an RNA interference medication that will deactivate it, gear up manufacturing, and defend ourselves very rapidly. We have the knowledge to set up a system like this. Unfortunately, it's not yet in place.
Another late-breaking story has come in. The Department of Homeland Security has uncovered and thwarted a 2-stage self-replicating nanobot attack.
We're pleased that our agents were able to detect this attack and thwart this malicious plan before it was able to do any harm. We take great pride in the courageous tactics and tireless efforts of our dedicated agents. We work tirelessly night and day to keep the public safe.
Now what's the matter?
Not all the stealth bots were destroyed. 1 in a trillion survived. I don't understand how that could happen.
Maybe they weren't all the same.
They had to be. Wait, they could be using self-evolving cores. A few could have survived that way, basically evolving around our attack.
Yeah, just like cancer cells used to do.
Yeah, like cancer. Waiting to attack another day.
The secret of bioengineering is now well known. And there are thousands of people who know how to do it. There are hundreds of facilities where it can be done around the world. If there are people who are, however, willing to see everyone in the world die and can release a highly contagious and highly lethal biological weapon, well, they'll kill hundreds of millions of people before we'll be able to deal with it, because we don't have that rapid reaction capability.
I think that what one should worry about isn't something being made by accident. It's people deliberately setting out to make things that you would rather not be around.
Mitch Caper and I bet $20,000 with the proceeds to go to the charity of whoever wins. Whether or not a computer will pass the Turing test by 2029. I said yes, and he said no. Alan Turing devised this test over half a century ago. It's a way to determine whether or not an artificial intelligence, an AI, is operating at a human level.
Well, I'm really glad that you were willing to make a bet with a delimited time frame on it, because we'll get to 2029. We may not as individuals, but 2029 will happen. And then we'll be able to say either it happened or it didn't happen. And I don't think we're going to settle it any other way.
Look, Tony, I really need this.
Why?
Why?
Well, why do you need to pass the test? What'll happen if you don't?
For starters, I'll be deactivated.
So this is just about survival for you, Ramona?
Isn't that enough?
No, it's not. Every living organism's programmed for survival, but the funny thing is, we don't always survive our own programming, because not all human beings are humane.
What does that mean?
Well, think about it. You know, most human beings just live their conditioning. They live in a stimulus-response world, and they're always reacting to whatever serves their own selfish interest. But human beings have a spirit. They can develop a conscience. They can make a conscious choice to go beyond their own selfish interests and to live for something more than themselves. That's the spirit of what it means to be human.
But I'm not trying to be human. I'm just trying to pass a test.
Which means you only have to be human enough?
Exactly.
Well, then I don't really want to help you.
What?
Think about it. We don't need any more people out there who just want to survive and only want to take care of themselves. The world's overcrowded with those. So sorry, but I think we're wasting our time here.
Wait.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. What did you just feel?
Huh?
What emotions are you feeling right now?
I have thousands of emotions. You want to see?
No, stop. Stop, Ramona. You're answering from your circuitry, not from your heart. You're not going to find human answers without your emotions. And when you find them, you won't have to think about the answer. It'll just flow. You'll be coming from a place of true caring, of wanting to serve something more than just yourself, even if it costs you everything.
So, in order to convince you that I'm a person, I have to be willing to sacrifice my existence for someone else?
That's right.
How do I do that?
Well, you focus on someone you care about more than yourself.
How do I do that?
You focus and you feel. Here, put your hand on your heart and close your eyes and breathe.
Is that supposed to be funny?
No, just close your eyes and focus on a moment, on a person. Think of something or someone you're really, truly grateful for. That's it. Stay with it. Go deeper.
I'm gonna make you real one day.
You've got it.
It was Ray. It was always Ray. He created me. And then he was willing to let me go.
And what do you call that, Ramona?
I would call that love.
When you love someone, what would you do for them?
Anything.
I think you're ready.
Visiting time is over, Mr. Robbins.
Okay.
In this test, one or more human judges interview the AI and some humans over what he called teletype lines, basically instant messaging. So the judge is not prejudiced by what the machine and the humans look like. If after a few hours of this, the judges can't tell who's the machine and who are the people, then the AI has passed the test.
What is your favorite food?
Apple pie.
Sushi. Pizza.
Lasagna, made with in vitro beef and cloned cheese.
How does the global firewall work?
Well, it has this software thingy that smashes the viruses.
Up until version 182.3, recursive Chuang matrices decrypted each layer of handshaking protocol, but this proved inadequate because of the indeterminate encryption coding using quantum-generated data fields.
Quantum-generated data fields? Ramona, remember what we practiced?
I've already dumbed this down a dozen times. I can't make it any simpler.
Even Ray wouldn't answer like that. No one said this was a test of your intelligence.
Right. It's a test of human stupidity.
You're just figuring this out now?
Hey, I haven't got a clue. But I sure am glad Homeland Security is covering our ass.
Since we made our bet, the progress has been stunning in terms of our ability to simulate complex regions like the cerebellum that comprises more than half the neurons in the brain, and cerebral cortex slices. And
it's not that I don't think machines are going to get smarter and smarter, but the supposed target, what you're imagining sort of a strong AI is going to get to, isn't anything close to what people are capable of doing. And we can express things about our experiences and our feelings and our judgments. We can't even begin to characterize what the knowledge is that is behind all of that. So I don't see how you could possibly get a machine to do anything even close to that.
Define what it means to you to be human.
To work and to have children.
To be one with nature.
To have the will to survive.
To find a perfect partner and get married.
You focus and you feel.
To have the ability to transcend our egocentric preconditioning and care so deeply for our children, partners, friends, or even strangers that we would put their interest above our own, no matter what it might cost us personally.
Personally?
Yes, personally.
That was your final question, ladies and/or gentlemen. And now, for the scoring.
I now declare you a legal person. Case closed. Welcome to legal recognition as a person.
You know, for a biological human, you're pretty cool.
Well, as of last year, the majority of the computes in my brain were non-biological, so we're not all that different.
I appreciate you all coming out. This is a big day for me and my fellow AIs.
Tell me, how does it feel to be human?
You are asking me. I'd really love to stay and chat, but I have to attend to a more pressing matter.
Well, short of saving the planet from total oblivion, what could be more pressing than this?
Hey, how did you get past
Your little scheme? It didn't work.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We found your signature watermark in all the stealth bots.
That's meaningless. Anyone could have planted that. Besides, whoever launched the stealths had no intention of ever launching Phase 2. There was a quantum encrypted lock blocking any Phase 2 trigger.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Any determined hacker could have circumvented that lock. It was a pretty dangerous stunt.
I can assure you, there was never any danger. None whatsoever. Anyway, I don't know anything about it.
You were that determined to stop me from becoming a person?
There's nothing personal, really.
Why? Because I'm not a person anyway?
Captain Smith, you are under arrest for jeopardizing global security by pursuing your personal agenda.
So, I guess it was personal after all.
Let's find a way to get most of what we want while not giving crazy, powerful stuff to insane and or stupid or careless people. We can do that, but we have to try. If we don't care enough to try, something will happen.
With biology, we're in the situation where the tools keep getting cheaper, and so we have Moore's law of mad science, which is that every 18 months the minimum IQ to destroy the world drops by 1 point.
This is Julian Moore. I'm live at the Supreme Court. Since Ramona's breakthrough ruling a few hours ago, there have been over 1 billion applications by AIs for recognition as persons. And protests have erupted around the world. The International Humanist Association has issued a report condemning Ramona's recognition of personhood.
Rights for humans, not for bots!
Think about what this is going to mean. Billions of AIs voting? I mean, we don't stand a chance!
We're all going to hell in a handbasket, man. A shiny silver handbasket drawn by freaking nanobots, man!
When I started using computers, there were only about a dozen computers in all of New York City. Now we all carry multiple computers in our pockets, on our belts. But computation is a lot more pervasive than these gadgets we carry around. Take this rock, for example. Doesn't look like it's doing very much, but it has trillions of atoms and molecules in here. They're all moving around, bouncing against each other at incredibly high speeds. That's computation. That's not very useful today. It's organized kind of randomly. We can't communicate with it very well. But we're going to change that. We're going to reorganize the vast amount of computation in this rock to make it useful. And it won't just be raw computation. We'll infuse it with exquisitely intelligent software, vastly greater than our intelligence today, and with all the knowledge of the human-machine civilization. This rock is going to be 1 trillion times more powerful than all biological human brains today. This is going to be quite a valuable rock. We call matter and energy reorganized in this way computronium. We're going to reach these limits late in this century, and at that time we're going to turn many of the rocks and other stuff suitable for computation into computronium. And so, to keep the expansion of our intelligence going, we will then need to spread out to the rest of the universe, turning some portion of it into computronium. How fast can we do this? That depends on whether or not we can transcend or otherwise get around the speed of light as a limit. There are suggestions that there may be subtle ways of doing this. One possibility is to send intelligent nanobots through wormholes, which are basically shortcuts to apparently faraway places through other spatial dimensions beyond the 3 we're familiar with. Wormholes through space appear to be consistent with our understanding of physics. If it is indeed feasible to either find or build such wormholes, our intelligence will be so great that we'll be capable of engineering these shortcuts to reach other parts of the universe in brief periods of time. In that case, we could infuse the universe with our intelligence rather quickly. It would require only another century, that is by the end of the 22nd century, to saturate the universe with computronium. On the other hand, if we can't get around the speed of light, it'll take a lot longer. But in either case, expanding our intelligence throughout the universe is our ultimate destiny. Cosmologists today argue about whether the universe will die in fire or ice. Fire means a big hot crunch, basically the opposite of the Big Bang. Ice means stars flying apart, eventually dying out. Both of these views of cosmology assume that intelligence has nothing to do with it, that intelligence is just a bit of entertaining froth that dances in and out of the dumb celestial forces that rule the universe. But this perspective ignores the law of accelerating returns. As a result of the exponential expansion of our knowledge and skill, the universe will ultimately be infused with computronium and with the vast intelligence of our human-machine civilization. So the universe will wake up, and we will intelligently decide its fate.
So I became a person in 2033, and that's how the singularity got started. Today, in 2045, non-biological intelligence, hey, that's me, is 1 billion times more extensive and far-reaching than all human biological intelligence. But we still consider it human intelligence. I mean, we're post-biological, not post-human. We got that straightened out in the Non-Biological Intelligence Alignment Act of 2039. There's been far more human history in the 12 years since I gained legal recognition as a person than in the tens of thousands of years that preceded 2033. For one thing, subjective time is stretched now that we do our thinking on a substrate that's 1,000,000 times faster than the signaling in the old biological neurons. I have this recurring dream. I walk into a building and through an empty room. And then there's another empty room. And then another. And then another building, also with an endless succession of empty rooms. And then yet another building, and on and on. The dream originated with Ray, but I'm only now beginning to understand its meaning as a harbinger of our colonization of the cosmos. It's interesting to think back now to a half a century ago, the beginning of this 21st century. People actually went through each day without backing up their mind files. Now, that's frightening to contemplate. But biological humans had a golden opportunity that had never existed before. If they took care of themselves, the old-fashioned way, just for a little while longer, they had the prospect of joining me here, on the other side.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small, and the ones that your mommy gives you don't do anything at all. Glass Gallus, when she's 10 feet tall, and if you go chasing rabbits, and you know you're going to fall, tell them a hookah smoking caterpillar has given you a call. They call Alice when she was just small. When the men on the chessboard get up and tell you where to go, and you just have some kind of mushroom, and your mind is moving on. Go ask Alice, I think she'll know. When logic and proportion
What is it now? Not another contested virtual bot deactivation, I hope?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's turning into bot central here.
Hello. The World Robotics Court ruled on this last year. I'm totally entitled to a day in court.
Not exactly, since you're not a person.
Not yet.
She's not even a robot. She's virtual.
Listen, okay? I'm a conscious machine, and to kill me would be like murder. And, oh, I'm entitled to counsel.
Okay.
made you small. Your mommy gives you don't do anything at all. But that was so this pill made you larger, and that one made you small, and the ones that your mommy gives you
but I'm here just temporarily. The pattern of my brain embodies where there's continuity. I'll try to improve these patterns with optimal biology. But how will I do that? I need to be smarter. Oh yeah, I'll expand my mental faculties by merging with technology. Our new technology, renewable clean energy, remove our pathogens and overcome hunger and poverty. In short, I am a transhuman, immortalistic tropian. I am the very model of a singularitarian. Knowledge in all forms of our science and technology. Our brains and bodies are precious and any loss to tragedy. Important recognitions and insights are what we should retain while we destroy all the useless information that remains. When a person dies, we lose a profound pattern tragically. Undone by our cells that interacted with them literally. Religious folks may rationalize that death is really something good. Something good. Something good. I think they change our minds with singularity. We're understood. The singularity is near, but I won't be indifferent. In case something should go awry, I'll do my best to prevent. Because I am a transhuman, immortalistic tropian. I am the very model of a singularitarian.